Amen. So if we turn to Testimonies to the Church, Volume 2, page 693, paragraph 1, which is where we were on Friday. Special truths have been adapted to the conditions of the generations as they have existed. The present truth, which is a test to the people of this generation, was not a test to the people of generations far back. If the light which now shines upon us in regard to the Sabbath of the fourth commandment had been given to the generations in the past, God would have held them accountable for that light. So we began to lay out this history. And we had the date for this statement. What date have we got? Sorry?
1844.
The date when this was written.
1868.
Okay, so did anybody check the actual date? Because you gave me a 3-year window, but we know the date that this was actually written. Nobody checked? Okay, so it's 1871.
1868.
But that's when Volume 2 is written. It's a 3-year period, but this actual statement is written in 71. If you go back and check in the table of contents, it tells you the exact date. Yeah? So we wanted to mark what this generation was. And initially we said that this generation was 1864, and then we realised that it probably wasn't, it was 1844. And why are we marking 1844 for this generation? Brother? Were you here on Friday? I don't know if you were here or not. Oh, sorry, okay. Why 1844? You've got to speak loud.
1844, that is when the temple was opened in heaven and the Ark of Covenant was seen. And now
Louder.
I'm saying in 1844, that is when the temple of heaven was opened and the Ark of Covenant was seen, and now God had revealed the light to Ellen White, and it was now to be given to the people, and it was a testimony for them.
Okay, and did we read that? So if you go to 2T, (693). Paragraph 2. When the temple of God was opened in heaven, John saw in holy vision a class of people whose attention was arrested and who were looking with reverential awe at the ark which contained the law of God. The special test upon the fourth commandment did not come until after the temple of God was opened in heaven. And so we're going to mark this as the third angel. Why do we mark this as the arrival of the third angel? How do we know that? Wilson?
When I read early writings, page 104, in was the will tell you that the temple was open. Christ sent another angel with a third message. One.
Third angel's message. As the ministration of Jesus closed in the holy place, and he passed into the holiest and stood before the ark containing the law of God, he sent another mighty angel with a third message to the world. A parchment was placed in the angel's hand, and as he descended to the earth in power and majesty, he proclaimed a fearful warning with the most terrible threatening ever born to man. This message was designed to put the children of God upon their guard by showing them the hour of temptation and anguish that was before them. So we know that the third angel's message arrives when the temple in heaven is open and Jesus moves from the holy place to the most holy place. And we tied that in with 2T. Which page? 693, paragraph 2. You can tie these together to mark the third angel's arriving and the special test of the Sabbath coming in 1844. And this is October. So that's this generation. So we then looked at a number of reform lines, and we looked at Moses, I think we looked at Christ first. And what was the special truth, the special light, the present truth that had been adapted for that generation? What did we say it was for Christ? My brother, what did we say the testing truth for the line of Christ was?
Christ the Messiah.
Sorry?
Christ the Messiah.
So it was the Messiah, Christ. And what kind of evidence did we give for that? Because Christ comes years after the reform line begins. So what did we say about that? Christ is the second angel.
Okay. In Daniel chapter 9, we went there and found that there was a prophecy which was given about the anointing of the Messiah. But the foreigner was sent to come and talk about that light which had come, who was John the Baptist. So from the beginning of the reform rites, it was all about Christ, because the foreigner was talking about the Messiah, whom we say was the second, or the first angel.
My brother?
And also, the other thing that we look on that subject, that Christ being the Messiah, he was to, actually, him being the Messiah was to deliver his people out of the bondage of sin.
So we had deliverer, and this is the deliverance from sin. Anything else? My brother? Anything else we picked up from here?
Also, we saw that.
A little bit louder.
Yeah, we also saw that before Christ came, John gave a warning, gave the message to prepare the way before Christ came.
I think we already mentioned that. Anything else?
What we also saw is that in the line of Christ, we see Christ was born, he was anointed. So within the line, it was the same story.
So Christ was
born in 4 BC, then was anointed 27. So the storyline is all about Christ.
okay, so we marked his birth here. Because often we just go to his baptism in 27, but we can see his line begins with his birth. Anything else?
We also saw at the birth of Christ, the angel was sent to the shepherd. So, and the Jew and the leadership was passed by. So the angel, there is a dispensation changing the word, that the word is given to the shepherd.
So we saw quite a lot of information about the birth. So even though we would normally mark this line like this, the first and the second angel, and we would, what way mark what would this be?
27.
So this would be 27. You know, when we do that and we mark John all the way through, what is John doing all of this time? He's not actually doing anything, is he? His ministry is how long before this begins? It's only 6 months. So it's still in 27. So John here, he's only got this 6-month window where he's actually doing anything. But we mark 1 all the way from the beginning. So I'm not saying it's incorrect to do that. But if you want to take history and mark 27 as the date where Christ is going to begin to do something, we'd have to do the same with John. And it's only 6 months before. So to mark this line as the Messiah, the deliverer who delivers you, we can pick up his birth here. So we saw the shepherds, and we saw that the shepherds had been selected. Why had the shepherds been selected? Brother Andrew, yeah?
Yeah, I think that the shepherds were selected to take the message to the leaders.
Why? Why weren't the leaders selected?
As in to be like a witness.
But why had the leaders not been selected?
Because they are. Their pride blocks the way for the truth to reach them.
My brother?
They have failed their test.
A bit louder.
They have failed their test.
What was their test?
They found out that when the mouth of John, Zachariah was doing something, was giving some message.
Can you start again?
Sorry?
Can you start again? My brothers were blocking your voice.
I'm saying the leaders have failed their test because they were the watchman. They were the watchman, and before the birth of John was giving a message before. Zachariah was giving a message before. So they had failed their test.
So we can easily mark Zechariah there before his birth. We don't know how long before the birth all of that happens. The way the story is written, it's almost like 9 months before his birth, he goes home and they conceive straight away, but we don't really know that. So we're not sure exactly when that occurs. But we can mark that very easily. There's obviously Daniel 9 that they all are studying, which all of them have got a good idea about the time period when that's occurred. It's not that long ago. So the shepherds are selected because the leadership have failed their test, so they're bypassed. Then we spoke about the Magi. Again, we're not 100% sure when the Magi come relative to the birth of Christ. I don't know if people have got any thoughts on that. It talks about a 2-year window. So we've got the Messiah, Christ. He's the deliverer. And what are the Jews expecting him to deliver them from? From Roman captivity. And he's obviously going to deliver them, but not from Roman captivity. He's going to deliver them from sin. He would have delivered them from Roman captivity, but that would have been something that would happen afterwards. So, is there anything else we picked up from this line that we've missed? Anyone? Whatever your notes say? Or we picked up everything? Everyone happy? Okay, so then we looked at the line of Moses. What's Moses' present truth message? Deliverance. So, can we call him a Messiah? So, he was the deliverer. And he's got a message of deliverance, and he's going to deliver people from Egypt. Anything else we picked up from this story? When's he going to deliver people from sin? Sorry, from Egypt, not from sin. When's he going to deliver people from Egypt? In this line. How long is this line? 80 years? So, if it's 80 years, then when does he deliver them from Egypt? Sorry? At the end. So it's here, if we're going to mark this as 80, this is where they get deliverance. I'll just put Egypt here. So, again, if we're going to just mark this as deliverance, then it's not really covering that history, is it? Because there's no deliverance for 80 years, which is even worse than Christ's line. So, we mark the time as the end as what? This is the birth of Moses. And what are we going to mark the end as? I suppose there's different ways of doing this. Are we going to mark this as the Red Sea, or Exodus, or Passover? I don't know if people have got strong opinions one way or the other. But if we said that's all in the 80th year, where they actually leave Egypt, this story is not only about deliverance, it's also about the deliverer who does that work for them. So, any more thoughts on this one, on Moses' line? Anything that we missed?
I think we read Exodus 1:15 where we saw the midwives, they feared God. Pharaoh had commanded all the children, and they feared and believed that. So you can see the presence of the fasting.
So, we had Exodus 1:15, and we saw the midwives. And the midwives passed their test. They fear God, they passed their test. So we can see a test here. The shepherds passed their test, the leadership failed their test. So, why were we picking that point up about passing or failing tests? Why did we discuss that? Do you remember or not? I can't. Why did we discuss that there's a test here at the beginning? If you don't remember, just say you don't remember, because you don't remember? You've got to tell me so that I know, not just like head movements. Can't remember?
So we see the first test in time.
Sorry?
Test at the time.
Why did we make that comment? Why did we make that comment? Sorry?
Pardon. No. I've not gotten what you are asking.
We marked a test here. And I said, why do we focus on that test at the time of the end?
Okay. That is the time where the deliveries.
Can you hear him? Can you hear him at the back? Okay.
Okay, I'm saying that is the time when the deliverer is given birth and the people have to identify from that point.
Okay, I think the reason we mentioned it, why did we mention it?
The reason why we mentioned it is because that for a long time in this movement, we were focusing on testing the use of the power of the first angel. But we were trying to identify that testing that we mark from the time of the end.
So, often we talk about the test begins at the empowerment of the first angel. Because now you've had this preparation time, it's time to get ready, and therefore you mark the testing, which would be here, long way into the reform line. Is that wrong? No, it's not wrong, it's correct. It's a logic or an argument that we use to make a specific point. But we mustn't forget that the test also really begins at the time of the end. We're making two different points. And I think that's the problem with reform lines. We get taught one way and we think that's the only thing a reform line can teach us or show us, until you start thinking that there are actually many other ways of explaining what a reform line is and how it works. So that's why we focus that, yes, there's a test that begins at the empowerment of the first angel, but it's not always that case, and we have to consider there's a test right at the beginning. So, anything else that we've missed from these two lines?
Okay, PP 245 paragraph 2 says that
PP?
PP.
This is something new because we didn't discuss this, I don't think.
I wanted to.
That's fine, just making sure. Where do you want me to put that?
It says.
Tell me where to put it first.
At the birth.
At the birth. This is.
Yes.
Okay, so Patriarchs and Prophets.
245 paragraph 2.
245 paragraph 2. If you let me read it so it picks up on the camera easier. The elders of Israel were taught by angels that the time for their deliverance was near, and that Moses was the man whom God would employ to accomplish this work. Angels instructed Moses also that Jehovah had chosen him to break the bondage of his people. He, supposing that they were to obtain their freedom by force of arms, expected to lead the Hebrew host against the armies of Egypt. Having this in view, he guarded his affection lest the attachment to his foster mother or to Pharaoh would not be free. He would not be free to do the will of God. So I guess it's the first part that you're looking at. The elders of Israel were taught by angels that the time for their deliverance was near.
So there we can see in relation with Zechariah also, yes, the same. We can see the angels visiting the shepherds. We can see also that point.
So we've got the elders and we've got Zechariah. They can line up. This is before the time of the end. So there's an increase of knowledge. There's an expectation about what's going to happen. Again, we often mark an increase of knowledge beginning at the time of the end, and that's correct to do that, but you can see there's an awareness beforehand. Any more thoughts on these two lines?
Yes, I think that the hell has happened for the birth, after the birth of Moses.
After the birth of Moses. The elders of Israel were taught by angels that the time for their deliverance was near, and that Moses was the man whom God would employ to accomplish this work. Yeah, I think I misread that. You're correct. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah?
It is when he's living in
Yeah. Okay, so it doesn't line up then. It doesn't line up with Zechariah.
Yeah.
It's afterwards here. It's in the increased knowledge as we would normally place it. So we can't do that. Any other thoughts? So let's look at the line of the Millerites. I'm going to take that out. So what's the special testing truth for the Millerites? My sister? Sorry? Daniel 8:14. So I don't mind putting the Bible verses down, but I wanted to, when we spoke yesterday, to try and have a storyline that we can grab hold onto, because Daniel 8:14 could mean different things for different people. So we're going to put the Bible. I'll put the Bible verse down now. And in Daniel 9, what verse did we say? We said 24, yes? But obviously you need to do more than, it's probably going to be 24 to 27. So we've got Daniel 8:14. Any other thoughts about what the message is? Here we've got, it's Christ, he's going to deliver you from sin. Here it's Moses, he's going to deliver you from Egypt. What about this one? Sorry? The second advent of Christ. Brother William?
I also tend to think that.
I can't hear you.
I'm saying, in connection to Daniel 8:14, Revelation 14, verse 7 is also their present truth. According to Sister White.
Okay, I don't want to put Bible verses yet. I just want a story first.
Let the first angel's message.
But if I do that, I'm just going to call these the first angel's messages as well. Because first angel's message is just a Bible verse. I want to try and think so that when we tell someone what these reform lines are teaching us, they can grab hold on to something. Because if you just say the first angel's message, it doesn't really mean much to people. Because then we're going to say, fear God, give him glory, hour of judgment has come. We're going to say 3-step test, everlasting gospel. And it just becomes very technical. So I want to try and think of it simply about what the special testing truth for the Millerites were. This one's easy, we can see that, yeah? You've got a deliverer, delivers you from Egypt. You have a deliverer, delivers you from sin. So I want something simple for the Millerite line as well. If you're not sure, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm just trying to wrap it in.
Okay, my brother?
I think, according to Daniel 8:14, we have to understand the position of Christ and his ministry in the heavenly sanctuary.
So, would you want me to put down that's too long?
You are to understand the ministry of Christ from the cleansing of the sanctuary.
Okay, so you're saying this is Christ? And the sanctuary. I'll put it here. And you said
Christ and his ministry in the sanctuary and the beginning of the investigative judgment.
My brother?
And the same as like the coming of Christ.
Sorry? The second advent, coming of Christ?
So their message was of the coming, Christ coming to deliver them and to cleanse the earth. Before the light came about the sanctuary. And even now they thought that the sanctuary is on earth when Christ was to come to deliver them from this earth and to cleanse it.
So you're saying Christ is to deliver from what?
From this sinful world and cleanse it.
From the world.
Yes, from the world.
Sister Emma?
That's what I was going to say, deliver them from the earth to heaven. Christ is coming.
So Christ is going to come to deliver them from the world. My brother?
Yeah, the testing was also the end of the primal days.
Sorry?
The end of the primal days.
If I wanted to, if we put like the 2300 days, then we'd put here the 430, we'd put the 490. So we know we've got time periods in here.
So they say second advent.
Second Advent. That was their theme. Brother Roberts?
Judgment house.
Sorry?
Judgment house.
So is that?
Yeah.
This one here? The judgment hour. What does that mean?
First angel was putting
First angel was pointing.
First angel was a call to judgment.
The first angel was a call to judgment. Anyone?
They were to recognize their deliverance from Roman yoke.
The deliverance from Roman yoke in the Millerites. What are the Romans doing to them?
They were Romans were putting them. They were under the captivity of the Romans.
So it's deliverance from Rome. Yeah. And who's going to deliver them from Rome?
The three angels message.
The three angels' message is going to deliver them from Rome. That was their message. Yeah? Did they even know about the three angels' messages?
No.
They just thought to pass them.
I'll ask the questions so we don't shout out. Yes or no?
They never know.
Which messages did they know about?
They were just preaching the first angels.
Just the first angel's message. So should I change that to just the first angel?
Yeah.
How do we know that they don't know that all three angels? How do we know that? How do we know they don't know all the three angels?
Because those three angels' message did not arrive at one point, but they arrive progressively.
Because they don't all arrive at the same time. So we've already marked the third arrives here at the end of their history. So they couldn't really been dealing with that. Any other? Any spirit prophecy quotes that we might know?
Chapter 19 of Great Controversy.
Sorry?
Chapter 19, I don't know the page, but chapter 19 of Great Controversy is telling us that Miller did not see other angel, but he was focusing on the first angel.
Okay, so you think that's chapter 9?
19.
Oh, 19, yes. Because I thought, sorry, that was my, 351. Jeez. 329. Not 351. I'll check 351 first. $329. Which I can't see it in 329. Which paragraph? My brother?
Yes.
You said 329. Where's?
29 paragraph 2.
Where does it say? I can't see it. 352. I thought it was chapter 19. 352, paragraph 3. Those who proclaimed the warning gave the right message at the right time, but as the early disciples declared the time is fulfilled and the kingdom of heaven is at hand, based upon the prophecy of Daniel 9, while they failed to perceive that the death of the Messiah was foretold in the same scripture, so Miller and his associates preached the message based on 8:14 and Revelation 14:7, and failed to see there were still other messages. So that's the one that we wanted to, that's the one you're referring to, yeah? So they failed to see that there are other messages. So it can't be all three messages. So we know that. We know the seven thunders are a delineation that should transpire under the first and second angel's messages. So we know that they don't have all three messages. So it can't be all three. So the first angel's message is going to tell them or bring them deliverance from Rome. Anyone else?
I want to add weight in that for deliverance. That is 329 paragraph 2. Great Controversy.
.2. And what's this going to teach? What's this going to show us?
Talks about the redemption, what they were preaching, and for that.
Miller had devoted 2 years to the study of the Bible. In 1818, he reached a solemn conviction that in 25 years, Christ would appear for the redemption of his people. So we picked up the concept of redemption yesterday. It's picking up Christ. So I can't remember who did this one. Is the angel the one that's going to deliver you? Is that what they were teaching? This angel's going to deliver you? If we've just read that he said that Christ was going to redeem them. Because these two are the same, it's just that one person said that the first angel does that and the other person said that Christ does. So are we okay to take this out? That it's not the first angel that's going to deliver you. It's the first angel that warns you about what's going to happen or not happen, and it's Christ that actually does the delivering. Yeah? Just as in these two stories, angels come down and warn people and tell them, but the angels on themselves are not the deliverer. So I'm going to take that out if we're okay. I'll keep that in here if we want to keep Rome or the world. Anyone else? Brother William.
What about the argues that the first angel...
Start again, sorry.
I'm saying, what about the argues that the first angel that comes is Christ, is not the best person like Christ himself? That one?
Well, it's not really Christ, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah? It is? I mean, it's not really Christ.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really Miller and his associates. So they're just representatives of Christ, I would think.
Maybe. The Miller and associate knew that they were preaching Revelation 14:6, fear God and give him glory, or they had a message to give out in which Ellen White come and comments now and say that what they were presenting, it is the message of judgment hour, and that he gives the clarity. The Miller did not go direct to Revelation 14:6 and say fear God and give him glory, for the hour of judgment has come. So then they had us a message based on Revelation 18:14 about the cleansing of the sanctuary. And Ellen White will come and comment now what they were presenting is based on Revelation 14:6, which was the message of judgment hour time which was coming.
Okay, does everybody agree with that? When they go and present, they're not actually using Revelation 14 to deliver their message. Their focus is on Daniel chapter 8. It's our story when we look back at that and we say they were preaching Revelation 14. We're going to say us, Ellen White's doing that. So she's directing us that it's Revelation 14. Anyone else? Robert, I didn't notice you there, sorry. What do you think? You don't sure?
So, what I can say is that I'm agree with Rogers.
You agree with?
Rogers on investigative judgment. Because Dan chapter 8, verse 14 is talking about the case of the sanctuary. And that case of the sanctuary is connected by investigative judgment. So the message that is given to them to the judgment listen.
Okay. Make your point. I just want to get something. Carry on. Sorry, can you repeat that?
I'm saying, yes, they were teaching 8:14, but did they really understand that it was talking about investigative judgment? I think they were presenting it.
Okay, so I want to come to that point. When we come to this line here, the line of Christ, and we say this line is the line of the Messiah, the deliverer from sin. Is that what was actually being taught? So they have an incorrect, they're giving a message that's not correct, because John is saying he's not going to deliver you from sin. John is saying what? He's going to deliver you from Rome. The disciples all believe that. It's only Jesus that's got the correct idea. So when we say here, the Messiah, Christ delivered from sin, did Christ, I know he's a baby, so it's not technically correct. He knows that from the very beginning, doesn't he? When he's 12, he knows that. When he has an awareness when he goes to Jerusalem at the Passover, he knows that the reform line is teaching that he's going to deliver people from their sin because he's the Lamb. So even though we know that this is true for Christ, other people are making mistakes. You agree with that? So who are we going to identify as giving the message? Are we going to identify John, who's doing it wrong, or are we going to identify Christ, who's doing it right, in this history here? Because we normally mark John as the first angel. Ellen White does that in early writings. But that would indicate that the first angel's message is actually doing it all wrong. Isn't the first angel giving the wrong message? If we're going to be technical about it. So John thinks in this history that it's deliverance from Rome. He preaches it's deliverance from Rome. But all through this 30 years, has Jesus got the right idea? Yes. So Jesus got the right idea. So we could mark Jesus as being the first and the second angel if we wanted to explain it that way. Because that's what we've drawn here, isn't it, really? In reality, haven't we drawn Christ as the first and second angel? Are we okay to do that? Yeah? Because on this line, who's the first and second angel? It's Moses. Has Moses got a misconception of how he's going to deliver? Yes. Yeah, but he knows he's supposed to deliver from Egypt. See, he has that right. So you can see in both histories, there's truth and error in this history, if I can put it that way. Jesus and John. In this one, there's truth and error. It's Moses and Moses. Moses knows he delivers from Egypt, that's true, but he thinks he's going to do it through force of arms, which is wrong. When you get to the second part of his ministry, it's correct and correct, if you like, because Jesus is taking over now, John is fading away, and Jesus knows he's going to deliver from sin, and that's what Jesus is teaching now, publicly teaching that. Moses is again publicly teaching it's deliverance from sin, and he believes the same. So when we come to the Millerite line, they were instructed by Jesus. If you go to early writings and you see the first angel's message, Jesus gives this angel a document, parchment or scroll, and he says, go and teach these people something. And what were they supposed to teach us? Investigative judgment. They were supposed to do that, and they don't do that, do they? They teach something wrong. So what we're going to say about this line, are we going to say the incorrect message that they gave, or are we going to say the message that they were supposed to give? Because when we did these ones, we didn't look at the mistake. We didn't focus for, I don't know, 2/3 of that history, it's all wrong. If you focus on John, and on this one, almost 80 years really. I don't know how long they're in Egypt for. Maybe a year at the very end when he returns back to Egypt. Maybe a few months. So for most of that history, or at least for 40 years of it, at least half of it, he's got it all wrong. Maybe when he goes to the wilderness, I don't know how many years it takes him to work out what it was, but he gives up on his message, doesn't he? So for most of it, it's all wrong, but we never did that when we just made this assertion. So when we come to this one, do we say, well, the Millerites got it wrong, because they're saying an executive judgment, or do we say what they should have done, or what the truth of that special test was? How are we going to approach it? Brother Robert, because you made that point, no?
I'm just waiting for you to come up with a conclusion so that I ask another question.
You're waiting for?
A conclusion on that so that I ask another question.
I tend to ask the questions. I don't like the students to ask questions. Because if I let you ask questions, it gets out of control.
So, I think if we have gone to the line of Moses and the line of Christ, and we have said that their message was ABCD based on what we are looking at and not what they really did. Then I think we are bound to do the same for the Millerites. Like, we have to look at what is correct, not according to what they were teaching. And in that sense, I would go with the investigative judgment, because what they were teaching is deliverance in the sense of the second coming, but I think it was incorrect. So, looking at it from where we stand in history, their message was supposed to be what investigative judgment.
What I want us to see, and we'll see this more as we go through our classes, that what we've taught in reform lines, I'm not saying is wrong, but I'm saying it's not the only way to view reform lines. And I think sometimes people get concerned about that because many of the things that we've taught in the past, they're all getting changed. And those changes people get troubled about. They say, well, does that mean we've been teaching error for so long? And I don't think we've been teaching any error. It's just that we need to reconsider what a reform line can teach us. It can teach us a number of things, and we can see it in a different way. So when we come to the Millerite line, we're inclined to say that they're teaching an executive judgment and it's the second advent, but that wasn't really exactly what they were supposed to be giving. That special message that they were giving was, yeah, the advent is coming, but it's not coming in your generation. That's not the special truth that they're supposed to be teaching. Because what's supposed to happen before the second advent can even come, according to what we just read from...
Second and the third angel must arrive.
We've got to have the third angel coming. And the third angel is what? The Sabbath. We've got to have the Sabbath issue before Christ could ever return. And they have no visibility of the Sabbath. None whatsoever. Christ didn't give them a message about the Sabbath. So we know that they couldn't have had the message about the second advent. They could have said, you know, we need to do all of this and then the second advent can come. But there's information that they don't know that has to precede the second advent. So we know it really can't be the second advent. I think the reason why we might think it's about the second advent is because when you read in the Great Controversy, it says this angel or this message could not come before 1798. Why could it not come before that? Why could not the first angel come before this waymark? The time of the end. Why could it not come before that? Why could... She doesn't say it in the context of the first angel, although it is. She says this special message, the message of the first angel, could not be given before 1798 because...
Paul had told us that we should not expect the soon coming of Christ or the preaching before the man of sin was revealed and they come falling away fast.
Okay, so she talks about the reference of Paul, but what you just said there was it's in reference to the second coming. So this hour of judgment, this judgment hour message could not be given because before 1799, because it's in connection to the second advent. It begins a cascade of messages, the first, second and third, which are going to bring you to the second advent. And I think that's why people are focusing here on the second advent, because the first angel's message is connected to the second advent. I think she's pretty clear on that when she talks about in the Great Controversy. Anybody got any comments or hands up?
I just had a thought. When you read the book of Daniel 7:9, the ancient of days, can you connect it with the investigative that they were to understand also Daniel 7:9?
Yes. So let's try and summarize. What is the message here?
The one plus those who gain the judgment, our message. It's the judgment, our message from them.
Is there deliverance in this message? Yeah? What are they being delivered from?
Sin.
Are we sure about that, yeah? Everybody agree with that? Has someone got a passage to verify that? Let's see if we can find one. The part of their message is a deliverance from sin. So we've got that here. Someone said the world. Someone said Rome.
Is that explained paragraph 4?
There's nothing that's on the same thing.
Which one we want to read? GC. Page number 330. And now the duty. And now the duty of making known to others what he believed to be so clearly taught in the scriptures urged itself with new force upon him. When I was about my business, he said, it was continually ringing in my ears, go tell the world of their danger. This text was constantly occurring to me. When I say unto the wicked, O wicked man, so she quotes Ezekiel 33, 8 and 9. I felt that if the wicked could be effectually warned, multitudes of them would repent, and that if they were not warned, their blood might be required at my hands. Anyone else? Looking for a quote that says what they're going to be delivered from.
Yeah, can you carry GC 375?
375. In preaching the doctrine of the Second Advent, William Miller and his associates had laboured with the sole purpose of arousing men to a preparation of for the judgment. They had sought to awaken professors of religion to the true hope of the church and their need of a deeper Christian experience, and they laboured also to awaken the unconverted to the duty of immediate repentance and conversion to God. They made no attempt to convert men to a sect or party in religion. Hence they laboured among all parties and sects without interfering with their organisation or discipline. So we had 375. And what else did we just read? 330.1. So it says in the preaching of the doctrine of the Second Advent. Was that a correct doctrine? Because we've argued a minute ago that it's about the investigative judgment. So I want to read another one. This is GC 393, paragraph 4. Paragraph 4. The coming of Christ, as announced by the first angel's message, was understood to be represented by the coming of the bridegroom. The widespread reformation under the proclamation of his soon coming answered to the going forth of the virgins. In this parable, as in Matthew 24, two classes are represented. So, what is she just doing there? Sorry? So she's got Matthew 25, and she says Matthew 25 is equal to what? Sorry?
24.
No, it's Matthew 25, isn't it?
It is said in this parable. is paradise in that of Matthew 24.
The widespread Reformation and the proclamation of soon coming answered to the going forth of the virgins. That's Matthew 25.
Yeah.
It is 25.
But it's 25.
Yeah, I know she's got 25 as well, 24 as well. That's fine, but I'm focused on 25 because that's the point. That's the point she wants to make. The focus is on 25. So Matthew 25 is equal to what?
The coming bridegroom.
The coming of the bridegroom. So what Bible verse is it equal to?
First angel.
The first angel. Isn't that what she says? She says Matthew 25 is Revelation 14, 6 and 7. Is that how we read that? Everybody agree? Or
Yes.
the coming of Christ as announced by the first angel is the same or represented as Matthew 25. If we go back a few, this is chapter 22. If we went back to, I think it's chapter 19, maybe even to chapter 20. Revelation 14, 6 and 7 are going to be compared to what passage? We already had it here. This is about 2 chapters before. I haven't given you the passage for that. So, this is Daniel 8:14. So what she does is she says the first angel's message is symbolized by 2 Bible passages. One of them is Daniel 8:14 and the other one is Matthew 25. And the Millerites employed both of those passages to explain Revelation 14.
The one where she compares 8:14 to the first angel is GC 424 paragraph 1.
GC 424. Oh yes, it's chapter 24. Both the prophecy of Daniel 8:14 and 2,300 days and the first angel's message, fear God, give glory to him, pointed to Christ's ministration in the most holy place, to the investigative judgment, and not to the coming of Christ for the redemption of his people and the destruction of the wicked. The mistake had not been in the reckoning of the periods, but in the event to take place. That's GC 424 paragraph 1. She does it before that as well, but that's a direct reference. So that's GC 424.1, and this was GC 3. So, if you're going to do this, what's it teaching you? If you're going to do this one, is it teaching you about Jesus is about to return? No, it's not. It's teaching you about judgment. So this is teaching you about judgment. 4. Yeah?
Yeah.
Pointed to Christ's ministration in the most holy place, to the investigative judgment, and not to the coming of Christ. So we know that they make a mistake because it's about the location of the sanctuary. So Matthew 25 is teaching them what? What's Matthew 25 teach you? That's the coming of the bridegroom. What is the coming of the bridegroom? So they're going to say that this is the second advent. Is that right? Are they correct or incorrect? So what is Matthew 25 actually teaching when it says they're going to come to the bride's house? What is that actually teaching? Sorry? The investigative judgment. That's what Matthew 25 is teaching. Sorry? 2 Two classes?
I think it's Daniel, the same as Daniel chapter 7. He's coming to the marriage, and how he does that is by going first to the investigation.
And you said that from Matthew 25, or because in 22 you can see that.
Yeah.
So in Matthew 25, when they go back to the bridegroom's house and the door's shut, what event is that in the story of Matthew 25?
What event?
The close observation
Sorry? He's already come. He came to the bride's house. Then they all turn around and they go back to his house. And they're in his house now. Only the good people have got in. All the bad are out. There's nobody good left. Sorry, nobody bad left. Only the good people have gone in and the house is shut. So what event is that? In the original story, what would we say? We've got the groom's house here, and we've got the bride's house here, and he's going to go here. Is that right? And you've got the 10 virgins outside, and then there's going to be a procession that goes back to his house. So when they've gone back to his house and the door is shut, what event is that? Close of probation?
What event in the original story? Or
In the original story. If we were going to take the original story, what would be the shut door that everyone's now in his house? Sorry? So this is the marriage supper. Anyone else? I've tried to look at this, and I don't have a firm answer. That's why I'm asking.
Is your question? You're saying when the door is shut, what event is that?
Yeah.
I think the shutting of the door marks the beginning of the marriage supper. As it says, the marriage now commences with all the people who are supposed to be there. Now everything is ready for the marriage ceremony.
The entering in of the bride and bridegroom into the marriage supper.
Okay, so everyone's happy that this is the marriage supper. And when did or does that happen?
October 22nd.
So is this really October 22nd that the marriage supper begins? In the original application, if you want to take that story as we should take in its original one, it's not in some kind of application, because you can apply Matthew 25 at different levels. You can apply it to the Millerite line. You can apply. So in the Millerite line, the tarrying time can be applied at what waymarks? The tarrying time in the Millerite line can be applied in what waymarks? April the 19th and October 22nd. You have two applications there. And if you're going to make it October, then the parable becomes a large parable spanning the whole of... so if you were going to do that, and this is October 22nd, this is the tarrying time. When would the bridegroom come to the bride's house? So I'll put B. So this would be the second advent. And then what would G be? where we've got a shut door.
When sin has been completely dealt with at the end of the 1,000 years.
So this is the end of the 1,000 years, you're saying?
I would think so.
So I call it the third advent. Anyone else?
I'll put the close of probation. That is number one.
This one?
Yes.
The close of probation.
Yes.
So this is Daniel 12:1, you said?
Yes. And I put G where all of them, that's the bride of the guests at the second time.
Why would you do that?
Because according to the first model, that was given, the bridegroom leaves his house and goes to get the bride. Then the bride comes with the bride, with the guests, back to his house for the Sabbath. So I'm submitting that where the probation is closing, where the bride is there, the church, his wife, but also there are members in the church, that is the guests. So then he leaves at that point when probation closes, back to his house to where they're going to have the marriage supper.
So you said something about the bride and something about the guests?
Yes.
Say that again, I missed that bit.
Because the bridegroom leaves his house to go get the bride. And when he goes to the house of the bride, there are 10 virgins, the virgins that are waiting. So he takes the bride and leaves the bride's house together with guests back to his house for the Sabbath. So I'm submitting that when you come to the close of probation, when Michael stands up, then Christ has his church, his wife, okay, but he also has the guests. So then he moves with them in the marriage supper of the Lamb. That is at the second time.
Okay. Now what he's saying, I'm finding it difficult to follow it because if you put the...
Who's he? Your brother?
If you put the bridegroom going to the bride's house at the close of probation, my question would be, who is the bride at that moment? Because when we do that at that big level, I think the bride, which will be the church triumphant, will include all the redeemed. That's why we go to putting at the second advent, because all the redeemed are there, then it goes with them to heaven, to the marriage supper of the Lamb.
So putting the time in October 22nd, how does it come in Daniel chapter 12 verse 1? Because like time is the bridegroom is supposed to come. He did not come in October 22nd, he's going to come at some point later in history. So how is that point later in history, Daniel chapter 12 verse 1? How does the time that began in October 22nd end in Daniel chapter 12 verse 1?
So we'll hold those questions because our time's finished. We're going to try and keep to time. Breakfast, and then if we can try to be on time for class. Yep, let's pray. Heavenly Father, we give you praise and thanks for your goodness and your mercy towards us. As we try to study the reform lines as you have given them to us, help us to see and understand clearly the importance of what they try to teach us, so that we might receive the blessing that they were designed to give to each and every one of us. We ask and pray for a blessing upon the food that we're to eat, and ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.